We're back at it on the SuccessFlow podcast, and it's been an eventful week in Phoenix with an event called Aspire, which is bang on for this podcast and what we are going after. And Steven was in attendance at the Aspire tour, Phoenix. And what we're going to do today is talk through a bunch of the value bombs and bamboo bangers that were at the Aspire Phoenix tour this week. How's that sound for an episode, Steven?
That sounds awesome, man. I was there by the time this released. Let's see, I was there Thursday, September 5th was when the event took place, and total Instagram ad got me, right? I'm looking at some things. I've got my feed totally dialed in for, all the people that I follow, thought leaders, motivational speakers, and just learning and trying to emulate them and build business in the way that they do. And they're all very successful people. And so it comes across my feed, this Aspire tour. And I'm like, what is this? What is this motivational rah-rah type tour thing that, I think a lot of these things tend to be. And then I asked myself, I think I'm just going to go. And I think I'm just going to do it. And I don't know what it's going to be like, but there's one person that I do know, not personally, but one person that I follow that was one of the speakers, and that's Cody Sanchez, which you know her as well. But for the listeners who don't know her, she's like the queen of small business and works really well with the trades and buys and sells businesses and does it through a thing called seller financing, which is a really intriguing model, basically buying businesses with no capital up front and not using banks or credit or anything. It's a really interesting approach, and she shares that with her community. And so I follow her on Instagram, and I see she's speaking at this event, and I'm like, she's there. She's not like a rah-rah type of person. She's pretty dialed in and shares some really good stuff. And so she's the one that got me there. And then I start listening to all these other speakers and was like, holy crap, this is one of the most genuine, really cool events that I went to. And I didn't tell anybody I was going. And I thought,
I had FOMO because of it.
Yeah, I didn't even tell you. I barely even told my wife. I just said I'm going to a conference. And she probably thought it was like an industry related conference, but it was the main reason why I didn't tell anybody was because this is really the first time that I've actually invested, paid my own money, personal funds, invest in myself just to go do something a little bit different, challenge myself on purpose, and just go there to be a sponge and just see what's up.
I'm proud of you. You've been such a live what you preach in the theme of the create over consumption. But one of the things I've been pushing you on is investing in yourself. I feel like we know the value there, but you've kind of just been hesitant on you're such a giver and such a provider. You haven't indulged in what is spending that actual money to pay for knowledge, even though you have.
I'm a bit of a cheapskate. I save all of my money and spend it on experiences and food and gifts and things for my kids and family. I never spend anything on myself. I still have the same basketball shorts and shirts from high school. I just don't buy things for myself. So it felt weird to do it, but I did it and I upgraded. I paid the VIP thing to get the catered lunch and have the private, networking opportunities. And actually, funny enough, got potentially 2 new clients out of it, which was paid for itself, which is great for the payroll business, right? So look at that. And
what I was about to say is I've on the other end, I've invested a lot, and I don't say that to brag. A lot of people would say, geez, on the amount, because it is over 6 figures that I put into coaching events like this. But each and every one of them, I can almost tie to a return and I monitor the credit card spend that I put, whatever the course event was, and I actually leave a spot and map to the return on it. So anyway, I just love to hear that. I didn't expect that coming right away.
I didn't, and that's what was great is I didn't either. And I think that's cool that you set that up to track that. I think I'm going to steal it. If you have a spreadsheet, send it over, but I'll just create something where okay, here's X amount of dollars I spent here. And I'm all about pivotal moments and opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So I created an opportunity for myself just by showing up there and challenging myself on purpose. So I want to document everything that transpires from this event, specifically based on the people that I met, and actually didn't do a ton of networking. I didn't put myself out there that much. I really just wanted to sit in the crowd and just be a sponge and watch and learn and really kind of soak it all in. Going into it with that mindset, I ended up, finding a couple potential new clients. And what was really cool was your buddy. You texted us and you're like, Eric, Steven, meet each other. You're at the same event. Figure it out. It was awesome. Like, he's such a great dude.
I love that. It was such an interesting day, seeing the messages of you being there, and then had another friend who is connected with Dave Meltzer, who was supposed to speak at it. Don't think he, for some reason, I don't think he was there.
That doesn't ring a bell.
Either way, there were so many messages. It's like, it's almost like I'm at the conference, but I'm not. And so I was having this FOMO, and I'm like, I love being able to connect people on the spot. But let's jump in and talk about some of the value nuggets, you just provided a good place to start that I'd love for you to expand on, because there's a lot of social media buzz around, no cash financing. The excuse, it takes money to make money, is not valid anymore. And some of that stuff can be clickbaity, and you have to be careful, because the way people look at debt can bite you in the ass. But there are ways to do it and mitigate risk and use leverage when you do not necessarily, when you're not sitting on capital. So I'm actually missing on my notes, because he was another new individual to me, but he wrote a book called, it was like Founding Without Cash or something like that. So anyway, I thought that was good. Maybe we could start there. Yeah. Cody Sanchez is great with it. She obviously knows what the hell she's doing and is not just racking up debt on moonshots for businesses. So maybe we could kind of kick it off there and talk through that piece.
Yeah, I mean, so she's the one that, like I said, she was the face, she was the name that I heard was going to be there. So was the reason I wanted to go. I think she's an absolute beast. I think she just represents this country very well, small business very well. Everything she, I don't know. I just think she's awesome. And she comes from a financial background and investing and all that stuff, and got out of the corporate America. And she kind of shared that story in her talk of, the proverbial hamster wheel of riding the corporate ladder, and just like, there's something better. There's something more out there for me. And I think I can do some really big things. And it's through small business and through trades, and it's through boring business, she calls it. So like laundromats and car washes and, HVAC, plumbing, all those types of blue collar, if you will, type of businesses. And so the way she acquires these businesses, and you can also do this through real estate, by the way. So there's a guy by Pace Morby. He's here local, I believe. And
that's who wrote Wealth Without Cash.
Okay. So he was there, and I saw him at a conference in January 2023, one of the first ones that I was actually sponsoring. And that's the funny thing about me going to Aspires. I've been to these conferences before, but typically it was me spending money as a company sponsor, a vendor, a booth, right? And then I would just go sit in on these sessions. Well, this was the first time I just did it for me. But Pace Morby was there, and he gave a different talk in January 2023 than he did this time. It was about 30 minutes, and he kind of kicked off and introduced Cody. But he was talking about the whole same idea, but doing it through real estate. So he buys like RV parks and multifamily and things like that. But some of these RV parks and whatnot he was buying, same idea with seller financing. And it was such an interesting model, because every time you think, I want to go buy a business or buy a small business, add it to, maybe I want to have a portfolio of businesses or a portfolio of, an RV park, let's say. Cash flowing is what you're looking for, but I don't have any money. And my credit's not that great. Like, how am I going to get an SBA loan, or how am I going to get a bank loan? Jumping through all those hoops. But I want to own a business. So how do I do this? And it's done through seller or owner financing. And the way they broke it down is it's a cash flowing business. You have to do your due diligence. Like, you got to be savvy. You got to have people that understand business and like what to look for and how to value them. But basically it's you're buying the business, and you're paying whatever the price point is that you agree to, and you're agreeing on maybe a down payment, and maybe there's an interest rate or not, but it's over time through the cash flow of the business. So let's say I've got $0 and I can't go to a bank, so my credit's not great, but I want to buy this RV park. This is the example Pace was giving. And he was able to acquire this RV park from someone who was ready to retire. It was cash flowing X number of dollars, and said, I will pay you whatever your purchase price is. Let's say we agree to $2 million. I will pay you $20,000 a month for X number of months until you're paid out $2 million. And the buyer and seller agree to whatever that's seller financing. There is no like lump sum. Here's $2 million. I have your business now. It's over time. You agree to terms to where you are just paying them through the money that the business is producing.
And so the reason you have to have your act together and make sure that you have done your due diligence and you're ready to do it is because it works out well for you as the buyer. But if you default, if things don't work out, it also works out well for the seller because they get to reclaim their business after whatever investment you've made into it is done, right?
Yeah. So there's all different. I mean, of course, they're talking high level and, didn't get into the nitty gritty and the details, but I think that's where Pace's book comes in and all their classes and all that kind of stuff. But just
to do your due diligence, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And from a very basic, example you gave is like, if you got an iPhone, you want to sell it for $500 on Craigslist. And I come to you and say, well, I don't got $500, but I want to buy your iPhone. And this iPhone, let's say it's a cash producing asset or whatever. And it's like, I'll pay you, instead of paying you $500, I'll pay you $50 a month for 10 months. You good with that deal? You're still getting your $500. You're just doing it over term. Oh, and by the way, I just did that with 0% interest. And so there's like ways to do that. And the seller is motivated, right? So you're finding those sellers that are motivated to get out of their business because they want to retire. And what what she leverages is the fact that there's millions of baby boomers that are getting out of businesses every single year for the next like 10 to 15 years. Like the opportunity is like a gold mine. And that's what she calls it, is like Main Street gold rush.
And a lot of their kids either want to be influencers or have careers of their own that they don't want to inherit or run with the legacy business. So
exactly. And then you hire people to manage the business for you. And you're the owner. You have a portfolio of business. So anyway, she's got a full mastermind community called Contrarian Thinking. I subscribe to the newsletter and read it every week. And it's just, that, like I said, she was the kind of the shining star of getting me to this event. And then I'm there and all these other amazing, incredible speakers were there.
Speaking of Contrarian Thinking, and she's well known, what I love about her is her no BS. She cuts through the hype, similar to Hormozy, in a lot of noise in that realm that we kind of talked through already. What were is there anything that sticks out that she said that was on that pace? Because she has some zingers the way she just addresses, like, this is real. This isn't a pipe dream. Like, it's very doable.
She just gave a lot of stats about small businesses and the availability of them. She was I think she's kind of changing the way she approaches how she's perceived. I think she was trying to be, and she even said this, not yesterday, but like in some of the other things I'm following, like, I'm just going to be outwardly me. Like, she's trying to be as authentic as possible now. And she's pretty hard set on how she feels about the government and small business and politics and things like that. And, whether you like it or not, she's probably not wrong in a lot of areas in terms of stats around small business. I mean, the most widely known stat about small business is 90% of them fail in the first 5 years. And what's crazy about the small businesses that fail in the first 5 years is they're half of them, or more, like 75% of them, never even make it to profit. So some of them go out of business even if they're profitable. They just can't continue to drive. But just some of those stats of like how it's so difficult to be a small business owner, and it's so difficult to be an entrepreneur and continue that grind until you break through somehow, some way, which is another kind of theme for the conference yesterday. But she just kind of nailed it on the head with, why cash flowing small businesses it's almost better in her perspective to buy than it is to build from complete scratch. And that's her model, is buying then build it instead of building.
Love that. Let's move on to the real FOMO for me, and who I would have loved to have listened to and heard speak was Tim Story. A guy that's been through a lot and has a very spiritual outlook on life, big on mindset. What were some of Tim's key takeaways? Love that guy.
Yeah, he was passionate, man. Like he's a very good storyteller. He gets the hairs on your arms.
It's in his name.
Stick it up.
It's in his name.
Yeah, exactly. It is in his name. But he had he talked about, like, when you have a revelation, it leads to conviction. And you've got it. Like, when something happens in your life, an eye-opening, a pivotal moment, like something just a revelation happens, and now I am convicted. I am ready to take it and go, right? And the way he told the story, like he's clenching his fists, and it almost looked like he had tears in his eyes. Like he's just so good on stage when it comes to getting his message across. And I think one of the coolest things that a story he told when he was in 6th grade, and it reminded me of my son who's in 6th grade, and how important it is to kind of make sure you're giving that positive self-talk to the youth. Is his 6th grade teacher said, "Hey, Timmy, I'd like to see you after class." And the whole class was like, "Ooh, like you're going to be in trouble," and whatever. And he's like, "Oh shoot, what does the teacher want from me?" And after class, the whole class leaves, and he goes, "Tim, you know what I think? I think you are." And he kind of paused, and Tim's story is telling the story, and he's like, "Oh shoot, what is he going to say? Like, you are good at basketball? Like I play basketball and I'm pretty good, or you're a good dancer because I just won the dance competition like before, or I am what, like not good enough or whatever." And he just goes, "I think you are brilliant." And that word stuck with Tim's story for the rest of his life. And he just remembered that as a pivotal moment of like, I am brilliant. I am capable. I am able to do the things that I think I can do. And you have this feeling, this conviction to want to make change and want to make an impact. And you just you do everything, whatever it takes to make that happen. And you don't stop. And he is very into religion and kind of has that, God has put a hand on you to lead the way. And he exudes that in the way he talks.
Yeah. And for the listeners that aren't familiar with the level of folks that Tim's working with, we're talking people that have been down a pretty dark path. Robert Downey Jr., Charlie Sheen, Kanye. He's really helped be a pivotal transformation, not just with religion, but just looking at the perspective of life as a whole and being able to really hone in on gratitude and the opportunities that have been in front of these people that have achieved material success in the world, the way that society looks at it, but we're completely miserable and really in the gutters. So anyway.
Yeah, he's your coach's coach. He's like your coach's coach's coach. He's like the ultimate life coach in terms of, perspective. And you nailed it. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
He mentioned Robert Downey Jr. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. He did mention him, and he's like, I've seen him at his worst and when he thought there was nothing left to give and he didn't have a way out. And he was one of my best friends, and I saw him at that point, and now look where he's at.
That's Paula's first crush, and I'm a big fan of all of his work. Love Iron Man and everything. I'd love actually Sherlock Holmes is one of the best. So Paula and I have a mutual crush on Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, that's funny. I love it.
Swinging over to go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the guys that run it. So Aspire Tours actually is only 18 months old, and it's sweeping the nation. Like it's now becoming. It could be self-proclaimed, I don't know, but there was a lot of people, probably 1,500 people in there at least, 2,000 people maybe. And they do events every single month all across the country. And it's these two guys that founded it, Andrew Cordell and Eddie Wilson. I had no idea who these guys were until, showing up. I mean, they're like real estate moguls. Like they have bought and sold businesses within real estate for hundreds of millions of dollars. And now they're, they've exited a lot of their businesses. Eddie Wilson is kind of like, they're like yin and yang. You got Andrew Cordell, who's like the fun, kind of like cool dad kind of guy who just very authentic, cusses a lot and very real and tells really funny stories. And then Eddie Wilson's kind of like you're a little bit more polished, dressed nice. You can tell very analytical, no risk, no fluff type of guy. But they make a really good, kind of match in the way they're putting on these events. And this is just Phoenix. Like they've had David Goggins, they've had Gary Vee, they've had all sorts of people come to their events and speak. And I think one of the coolest ones I have to admit is Marcus Lemonis from he was from the Prophet or the Fixer show.
Oh yeah, the Prophet.
So he was probably the most authentic and genuine of them all. It was really cool to hear from that guy. And he actually was the CEO, I believe, of Camping World or Camper World or whatever, where the largest RV dealer in the world. Every one of 4 RVs is bought from Camping World. And just the way he spoke about life in general and how introverted he is and sharing some very personal stories, I think was really eye-opening for a lot of people, just to understand that like, yeah, like you're not alone. Like there's people that you think are like uber successful that go through the same stuff that you go through or brought up the same way that you were brought up.
Yeah, I think that his philosophy, and I mean, he's a man after my own heart with the alliteration and using words of the same letter, especially the letter P. But I think his philosophy is people, process, and product.
Yeah.
And if you can nail those whole things, which being with our conversations in Junto, that's pretty much what we talk about all the time. Well, how are we leading people, or making sure that we are operating with the collective and whole and culture, the process, what are your back end systems? How are you improving and tweaking them to map to the outcomes that you're looking for, KPIs, making sure your policies are standardized, and product. What's your value prop and how are you bringing exquisite value to the marketplace? So I had a feeling Marcus Lemonis was it was echoing from Summit a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it was echoing from some, and a lot of it's like what we talk about, and it just obviously really resonated. But there was Andrew Cordell. He did like an hour and a half session all around money, and basically giving permission to talk about money. How many times do you hear, like with your friends or people around you in your circle, and no one ever really talks about money? Like no one's asking, how much do you make a year? How much do you make a year? Like it's rude, right? Like that's how we're brought up, and money doesn't grow on trees.
That's the problem. That's why we have such a scarcity mindset.
Exactly what he was talking about. And he goes, you've got the 1% wealthy, you got the wealthiest people over here. And then you have everyone else who's trying to make it or whatever. And the wealthy people, all they're doing is talking about money. Everyone knows how much each other makes. Everyone knows each other's strategies. They're very transparent about it. And they're all super wealthy. And then you have the people over
everyone
here,
else is spending their money trying to look rich. The new
exactly. Yeah. And then he's talking about all of the tax advantage funds and accounts and like very high level. Like obviously there's an upsell to get to some of their classes and courses and all that kind of stuff. But just opening people's minds up that these things are out there and to learn about them. And I think the way he brought up money is you have the contributors and you have the creators. And we're all contributors. We're all spending money on other people's things until you become the person who's the creator. You become the owner of the bank. You become the owner of Safeway. You become the owner of, whatever people are buying. And all that money that's funneling to you is invested in tax savings accounts, invested in other things, and just continues to grow. And you're not even really spending money. You're spending the contributor's money. It's not even your own money. And so he talks about creating it, keeping it, and protecting it. And those are the three things. Everyone in that room knows how to create money. It was like 90% entrepreneurs. Everyone knows how to make money. It's the keeping it and protecting it part that's not fully understood. And by keeping it, meaning like how many tax saving strategies can I come up with where I'm not trying to get to zero? Like I don't want to deduct everything because then it looks like I make no money on paper. I still want to report everything so it looks like I make money, but I want to do it in a way that's tax advantageous. I'm going to report everything to the IRS, but I'm going to do it through HSAs, Roth 401ks, solo 401k, all sorts of things, right? There's so many different things out there. So anyway, his whole talk on money was really eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people. Some of the stuff I knew, some of the stuff I didn't. And it was just neat how he broke it down from contributor to creator. I'm like, damn, how do we get out of contributor status and get to the point where we're creating?
This is what's so exciting is this information is out there at the fingertips. This isn't back when it truly the gap from the wealthy and the folks with less means couldn't get the information. It wasn't published. And if it was hard to find. This is all at your fingertips, listeners. It's just out there and what we're trying to at least spark and bring to you. I freaking love it. I'm getting pumped up. One of the ones that caught my eye as well, just given the nature of my day-to-day workday at Workiva with us helping with the private to public IPO transactions, was the youngest and entrepreneur to take a company public, which was David Fleischman, and has transitioned since having that early success as a young man, has really transitioned and focused on philanthropy, right? Did Fleischman, do you recall that portion of the session, and how did he do?
So Dan Fleischman, he only thing he talked about was presence on
Did I
social
say
media.
David?
You did. Yeah.
Dan.
Dan Fleisch. So I knew that backstory going into, because I was starting to look at some of the speakers and whatnot, but he only talked about why it's important to self-brand. Everyone has a personal brand. Whether you are on social media or not, you have a personal brand. Everyone has a perception of you. Now, it's up to you to control the narrative. Are you going to tell the story how you want to be perceived? Or are you going to let others gossip and tell their own story about how you are? So like he gave an example of a mom who takes her kids to school at 7 a.m. And then the next time, someone at the school, another mom sees her is taking the kids home at 3 p.m. But that's all they know about her. They just think of her as a mom going back and forth. But they don't know that she makes $1 million in real estate. They don't know that, she's married with a husband that they take all these adventures. They don't know XYZ or all these things. And the story was, had that mom been on social media and sharing story, because social media is free. It's free marketing. Like you have the ability to create and share it in the world, anything that you want for free. And if you're in business or you're trying to drive revenue or you're trying to create things, utilizing social media to control the narrative about you will keep you top of mind, more so than seeing a billboard on the street or your picture on the side of a bus. Like old advertising might still work in some areas, but for the most part, if you are on social media and your personal branding, you have the ability to change the perception about yourself. And then all of a sudden, when you think, I need a realtor, and you're going to think about that person because you're following that person and you're picking up on what they're laying down. So he did more of a personal brand talk, which obviously I'm very much involved in that. So I also think there's a point. He made a really good statement of, you're not trying to be an influencer. You're not trying to be like, you're just being authentic. Like you're not trying to add time to your day. Like, oh, it's too time consuming. It's like, no, it's not. You're doing all the normal things. You're just taking a picture and a 30-second video every now and then, one post a day, to help people get to know you better, as opposed to make up their own conclusions about you.
We're having this conversation just most recently with Ed Drummond, right? Like it's a part of business now, and you have to give those insights. One of my favorite creators who has impacted me a ton, Dan Coe, talks about how some creators are getting exhausted because they feel like they're trying so hard and have to keep up with this persona they're putting online. And he said that's the problem, is if it's authentic and you're just documenting your life, not just the highlight reels or this alter ego that we talk about, it makes it a lot easier to consistently do that. And that's what we want to get to, right? That authenticity, that alignment. And people can find out what they want about you anyway. So you might as well live it authentically and share it if you are building something impactful to the world.
Yeah. I mean, the example he gave was like, you got a little kid sitting in a high chair, and the mom sitting behind the kid, or the dad sitting behind the kid, and it's like perfect smiling faces, perfectly posed photo. And then you got the other photo over here where the spoon is flying, the bowl of cereal and milk is flying to the air.
Toys everywhere.
Toys everywhere. And it's like, that's relatable. That's what people, and that's the picture that goes viral, not the perfectly posed one. And it's so true, because that is relatable. And I do these things on, like when I go rucking in the morning, every now and then I'll hit the record button at like 6 a.m. when I'm walking the dog, and I call them ruck talk, or dog walk, ruck talk. And I just share 30 seconds of my thoughts or whatever. And my hair's all crazy. I got my glasses on. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm not trying to look presentable. I'm just trying to get the thoughts out. Right. And some of those,
is one of the best times they come on those walks, man.
It's the greatest. And so I just started hitting record, and every now and then, they'll throw them up on TikTok, and every now and then people will like it, and whatever. I don't really care so much about that. But that was what Fleischman was saying too, is like, it's not about the number of followers. It's about the quality of people that are looking at your stuff. Like, to grow you don't need millions of followers to grow your local business or whatever. You just, the right people will follow you, and you're trying to build your tribe. And you have
your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah, you have these free tools to do it. So why not? But I thought Gronk was awesome. That was cool to see him in person. He's obviously doesn't seem like the brightest guy in the world, but this guy is cooking, man. He's doing some big things. It's like,
and talk about authentic.
Totally.
He hasn't strayed. He's he hasn't even had to talk about his work ethic and dedication to craft while he was in the NFL. Everyone else does.
Yeah.
He just lives it, which you've got to I respect that more than anything. He's not putting it on. And if he is, it's perfect. Like he just lives his life and has put orders and parameters around his fun lifestyle that make him really, really valuable.
Do you know why he chose to go to U of A instead of Clemson and Ohio State? I think there was a fourth one that he was like top 4. So he had like 20 offers and he had top 4.
Was it a party? Was it a party thing?
Yeah, totally. He's like, Arizona, sun, party, girls. This is where I'm going. That's what he said. He's like, this
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I would have chosen a different school in Arizona and wish he had too, but
it's
that's for another conversation.
I mean, that's authentic, right? Like that's how, but I think one of the coolest questions so they did the kind of a interview style with him. Like he didn't do like a speech or anything. So Andrew Cordles, asked him questions, all this stuff. He's like, all right, so you've been with some of the greats. You've been with Belichick, you've been with Robert Kraft, Tom Brady, all this stuff. And, kind of talk about the dynasty of the Patriots. And, we all love them or hate them. They were a dynasty. And he just said from top to bottom, the culture of that place was the most consistent I've ever seen. Like Robert Kraft was so into the players and the well-being and the culture of winning. Belichick was, do your job. Belichick, same way, was just a wizard is the word he used on football and how to come out of the game, not necessarily being the most, you're not scoring the most points on average in every game, but you're going to win the game. You're going to manipulate the game against the opponent you're playing to win the game. You're there to win. And then you have Brady, of course, who's just a machine, and so that whole like top to bottom really resonated with me from a business standpoint. Like when you're a leader and you can develop your managers and your managers can develop your team, like that's how you build winning culture, was kind of learning from that. And so the other question was, what have you seen from some of the greats, like the legendary people like Tom Brady? What's the difference between them and someone else who has all the skill, but they're just not quite at that level? And he just said, it's just the will to want it. You just want it. You just want it more than anybody else. You may not be more athletic than that person, but if you have the will to want to win, you will come out on top. And I just thought that was a great little nugget. Bamboo banger from the Gronk.
Got goosebumps. Simply said, but difficult in practice, right? Like,
oh, totally.
I love that. I love that.
Well, I think it just goes back to alignment and passion. And, when you're excited about something and you see an opportunity that sparks energy and you get energized by it and aligns with your core values and you're just like, let's go. Like you just have this fire in you. You have that will to want it and you just want to be the best and you can't take anything less. You just continue to go until you're the best. And that's how you turn into Tom Brady and Belichick and those guys, Hall of Famers.
It's a bamboo banger and a Gronk spike all in one. The
Gronk spike.
Let's tie it out with a big Hollywood and business name. Mr. Wonderful was there. Talk about a polarizing guy, can really get on your nerves, but also just drop some serious knowledge. Shrewd negotiator, probably what he's known most for, not just because of Shark Tank, but he's always looking for return and, really bottom line kind of guy. What was he like and what were the main points of his discussion?
So I'll be honest, I didn't hear most of his talk. Is actually when your buddy Eric and I were meeting up. We were chatting in the hall when he was going on, but I did pop back into his session for about 10 minutes or so before I had to leave. And he was talking about one of his deals on Shark Tank. I think it was like the sponge, I don't know, some toilet cleaning sponge or something. I don't know what it was, but it was like one of the ones.
Mr. Like, Scrub Brush or what? Or
maybe. I don't know. I can't rember exactly what it was.
It's like the most successful Shark Tank one forever. The scrubby brush that's a smiley face.
Yeah. And I don't, it could have been. Yeah, I'm not 100%. But it was like, there was this commercial where he was like, Mr. Wonderful's cleaning a toilet. He's like, hell no, I'm not doing that. And he's like, let me play the commercial. And there's him like scrubbing the toilet and like making fun of it. Right. And so I think the purpose of that was like, don't be so like stuck in your ways. Like just go have fun with what you're trying to do and grow and whatever. But he said it's going to be like the best investment on Shark Tank history. And he only got like a 5% stake. It was kind of wild. I think he gave him like $275K for 5% or something is what they agreed to. But yeah, I mean, I didn't hear too much about him, but I know that he's, obviously we know Mr. Wonderful.
Well, in my eyes, you're Mr. Wonderful, Steven.
Oh, please.
Thanks for that recap. I'm proud of you for getting out there. Not proud of you. I mean, you're doing this stuff. You're in the arena. But listeners, if there's an event that's been calling you, if it is repeatedly coming to your attention, you want to get around, get inspired, you have something coming out of you, go do it. Like, just go do it. Book it. You're listening to this podcast. I'm sure there's something out there, and let us know what that is. And maybe we can do a breakdown with you.
One thing I'll add before we end is when you go to these things and you get all inspired and motivated and you're like, okay, I've taken some good notes. Like, I've got all these, great nuggets and all this. Dude, that shit's going to wear off in 2 days if you don't start taking action. So you don't go without the plan to take your notes and then start implementing the next day or that night or whatever, and just start putting things in motion and then just let it compound over time. But don't let it go to waste.
And call us. Maybe you'll be on the pod. That could be one of your first steps to action. Awesome episode, man. That's it for the SuccessFlow podcast. We'll be back at you next week, and keep flowing towards success.